Hey everyone, so a couple months back I made a video about the band Lemon Twigs and their fantastic album from last year, Everything Harmony. Well, the Lemon Twigs got in touch with me, and a couple weeks ago I was lucky enough to interview them for an hour and a half where we talked about everything, including their new album, A Dream Is All We Know, which is out today, May 3rd. We ran through every track, we talked about their recording process, they explained why analog tape sounds so good, we talked about their upbringing, what modern bands they liked as kids, what video games they played, and of course a whole bunch of Beatles chat, including their thoughts on the new remixes, the song Now and Then, and Get Back. It was such a pleasure to talk to Brian and Michael. They're the nicest guys. We had a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy the interview. Brian and Michael, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me. Welcome. How are you both?
I'm good. I'm
good.
yeah. I chose this angle because I'm very insecure about my hand size, so I want to make sure they look huge.
Yeah, you look much taller. It's I'm
Well, my hands. Hopefully my hands. They don't look circus huge, but they look nice and
elongated.
Like a full-grown adult.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, I just noticed that this angle is insane. But yeah, we're good. We're good. Brian, how are you doing? You're in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, it's good to be here.
I'm
keeping it pro.
No, I like it. So yeah, I guess the reason why we're even talking today is I made a video about your wonderful album Everything Harmony from last year, and your label was kind enough to let me know that they liked it, which was very kind, and they sent me an early stream of A Dream Is All We Know, and I just want to say congratulations. I've been listening to it nonstop. It's a superb record. You must be very excited to finally release it. I know you've had these songs rattling around for a good while now.
Yeah. I mean, it's super exciting. I'm the last record we were like very proud of when we finished, but we knew right away probably about half of the songs we're not going to play live very much, because it's very, how many ballads can you really put in what should be like a fun rock show, in our opinion,
Totally.
So this is fun because we can pretty much play the whole record. Save for a couple songs, which we could throw in at some point. So that's really exciting because, there isn't a song that we're embarrassed of, and that's really what we're aiming towards.
Well, yeah, I think like being able to have a record that you're able to rotate the songs and have in a live setting, so we can do one night and do another one the other night instead of having to play the same, whichever the upbeat ones were like on the last record. It's going to be cool, I think, for us.
Perfect. Now, I wanted to ask you about your recording process. Now, I know that every album of yours you record on analog tape, but I understand that this is the first album since Go to School in 2018 that you've also mixed analog as well. Nothing digital about this album. I want to ask you, Michael, in particular, because I know you're kind of the main engineer of the two of you. I know it's more convenient. I mean, we've just the rest of you won't have seen this, but we had some modern technical difficulties setting up the Zoom.
I have to get the Zoom link to the computer, and I don't have any of my accounts logged in. I don't have any of my passwords. And the airdrop in the link won't work. Is there a pin for the Zoom?
I know that recording to analog tape is really just a matter of convenience. It's quicker. It's what you know. But I'd wonder if you could talk about the difference in sound. What is it about the sound of analog tape that is so important to you, and why you'll always use that over digital?
Well, I guess like when we first started using it, which is like, I don't know what year it was, but
it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, like 10 years ago. Yeah, when we first started using it, it was like my dad's old records were done, his old recordings, which we were just sort of starting to appreciate around that time. I was like 14 and starting to see my dad as somebody who was a really great musician and wrote really great songs. I guess that was probably around the time where we started to get into things like RCV more and things that were reissued or whatever that weren't as well known, I guess. So I started to think of my dad's stuff as that kind of stuff and understand him as a songwriter and stuff. And so I was listening more intently to his recordings, and that's when I first started to go, well, I really like these old recordings. I like the way they sound, you know, and this is the same guy, and he's making these new recordings, and they're, you know, digital, and there's a difference there. And that's when I remember picking up on the difference. And I asked him about that, and I always knew he had these tape machines laying around from that period. He had like an 8-track and a 4-track and a 2-track. So we pulled out the 8-track, and he showed me how to use it. And immediately the first thing that I thought about it was that I was able to listen back to myself without a lot of manipulation. And there was enough of a filter on it seemingly, where I could like myself like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I could hear myself, and it wasn't so naked that it was appealing to me. And I kind of got addicted to that, and that's where like gear and all that kind of stuff that is really not important, but you know, it can really help you. I don't know. I think it's like it helps translate what you're thinking in your head maybe, and you can get a little distance from it.
Yeah.
The way you kind of hear yourself or something. If you hear yourself back on a very well recorded digital recording, it's very revealing, you know.
And
Too
maybe
revealing.
it's just a little bit less revealing for some reason. I don't really know technically why that is. I mean, maybe there's just a little bit of difference in pitch and speed or time or whatever when it's recorded onto tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's all of those things, and it's obviously it's just like the warmth, and it's just like the physical aspect of this thing. Like, I guess this sound being, I don't really know what it is, but that's probably as basic as I can make it, because then everything else is just getting into like it's kind of more compressed sounding, and it's more, you know, it's just kind of.
He's not much of a philosopher, and he's an even worse scientist.
Well, all right, let me jump to, because we'll be talking about the Beatles a little bit throughout this interview.
Cool.
I wanted to ask your opinion on the remixes that have come out in recent years. You know, you've got these old tracks that most people hear in like primitive stereo, and are now being, you know, totally remixed digitally and made to sound so much bigger and louder and fuller than they ever dreamed of in the 60s. Is that a good thing, or should we be wary of manipulating such a classic sound too much?
I think it's perfectly fine, and I think it's like, you know, if people are going to listen, if it can help like people who I guess are more accustomed to a modern sound, kind of like appreciate it because it sounds bigger. The only thing is, in a way, it makes you appreciate it less because it reveals certain things, and it kind of, you know, how much the compression in the Beatles recordings and the bouncing down and stuff, how much that matters to make things sound
tight.
I guess to make things sound really masterful and tight. Yeah, as opposed to maybe like a Beach Boys thing where there's a lot of these remixes that happen, and you can really hear how amazingly tight the recording was.
Yeah.
And of course, that, you know, that's not always true. It also shows some of the cracks in the Beach Boys where you go, oh, those vocals aren't always incredibly on. Sometimes they let little things go, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I think that it's fine. It's not my preferred listening mode, you know, to like listen to those mixes, but it's totally fun thing, and I don't have any like problem with it, you know.
Yeah. Do you normally prefer mono or stereo?
Yeah, I mean, I'm into whatever the Beatles themselves were you know in the room for. So I'm into the mono mixes for the early stuff, and then the stereo mixes for the later stuff, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we listened, like, for example, we listened to, like, Sgt. Pepper, the stereo version, our whole lives. And we obviously always loved that album. And we heard the mono mix way later. And when comparing it to, like, Pet Sounds or something, we always thought, it's interesting that they compare those records because one is a really tight record, and the other has more, like, is more of a band sound, you know, and they're very, very different, you know. But when you hear the mono, it's like, it does have this real completeness that
Yeah, it has the air of a masterpiece.
Yeah, it does feel, I don't know, I guess you just hear the effort that went into the mix, whereas the stereo ones were more haphazardly.
Yeah, it sounds haphazard and kind of crazy and wild, you know what I mean? The mono sounds like polished and beautiful, so.
Yeah, I bought my 2009 mono box set, and I've been clinging to it ever since, because they don't put mono on streaming. Like, if you're anyone young who's getting into the Beatles, you go on Spotify or Apple Music, and it's all the stereo mixes. So I guess for me, that's like one benefit of these remixes, is that you get, I guess, a more modern stereo remix. You don't have the hand claps from Roll Over Beethoven just so hard in your right ear.
Yeah.
It's more evenly spread out.
The things that I kind of enjoy listening to in the new remixes are the things like Day Tripper was pretty fun. Things that are more like rock, standard kind of rock stuff. It's kind of interesting to hear it like that, in more of a powerful context,
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. I haven't listened as astutely as maybe you guys have to the new mixes, but weren't you telling me, Brian and Dad, was that there were some fills that are like where they're doing like panning, like they're panning toms and stuff, and there's definitely no way that they had stereo tracks, so they're doing this kind of funny manipulation of the stereo, and to me it's kind of like that kind of thing.
Giles was having a lot
that kind of thing is that kind of thing is a little silly, because
it suspends it suspends your disbelief as a recording engineer, because that it was recorded to one, with
track. So some guys just like, but I guess with the technology they have now, it's like Brian and I like listening to those AI things that are on YouTube, like this guy Day Lims, who does a lot of he does a lot of stuff, and we really like his stuff, and it's just so fun to like listen to that stuff. So what I was gonna say is that with the technology that's available now, I guess I'm sure that it's very easy to
separate it out.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like
separate tracks.
Yeah, it's not like some guy going with the toms. You know what I mean?
I don't think they had that technology when they did the Sgt. Pepper
mix.
But there's been ways to gate and you could grab a tom and put it over the, it's not like isotope. You could grab the primary frequencies or something. You can always do stuff like that.
Now we're getting really out of our.
Well, it's out of my depth, but it's just stuff that's definitely out there. If you're able to isolate something and remove it, you're able to isolate something and bring it out.
Get Giles on the horn.
Yeah, let's grill him.
Yeah, that'll be for next time. I wanted to move on to your music videos, because you're recording on analog tape. They're shot on film, and I really love the references that you have to, like, the monkeys in, I think it was In a Dream Is All We Know, was it? Or
I think They Do Not Have Fallen Place has probably the most monkeys references per capita.
Yeah, that's right. With the pink background. I was confusing those two. And
yeah.
You're in the is it the Nuremberg band shell? Which is like, I was like, oh, that's Mind Games. It's John Lennon's Mind Games music video. They're great little Easter eggs. I think what they convey, your music videos, is what's great about seeing you guys live as well, is this like unabashed joy and this silliness that is just so tangible in your music and your presentation. I really love it. But you're also delivering really layered and detailed songs. And I don't know, I just feel like there'd be a temptation as a band, when you're starting out, to go for the more moodier, mysterious approach. But you guys have gone the other way. And I don't know, I find that really refreshing. So how important to you guys is that, containing that joy and, infusing it in your writing, in your recording, in your performing, that exuberance, that silliness?
Well, I think that we're kind of naturally silly guys, and we've been through the gamut of you know, kind of being like more serious and shit. It's just like I guess.
But I was so much older then.
If you, and I'm younger than that now. If you are able to look at yourself, you know, and see like how ridiculous you are and how ridiculous you look, which is certainly true for us, then then there's no reason that I don't know that you should be serious about it. I guess all of our favorite people are not that serious either, you know.
Yeah.
Sparks and the Beatles and the people that we think give good vibes.
Yeah.
Aren't that serious, you know, and we just want to give good vibes, man.
Absolutely.
Actually, we're not being silly.
Whoa, you guys.
Whoa. Yeah, I saw that.
I got some
Yeah.
serious vibes.
Why does your thing always does all that kind of shit? My thing never does that.
I mean, also though, speaking about that, it's like we have so much fun with Reza and Danny, who we like, you know, we kind of like wanted to translate that live energy. That's why we have them in the videos and stuff, and it made doing the videos so much more fun and feel so much more creative because we could, you know, use their personalities, and they're such funny guys, and we just have more fun doing shows, you know.
It's really refreshing. When I saw you guys in Melbourne, that was one of the things that really stood out to me. You know, I'd seen a lot of, you know, rock bands at the Corner Hotel where you guys played, and yeah, it's like a default. I feel with a lot of artists to, I don't know, not necessarily take themselves very seriously, but just, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's really refreshing. I think it's very cool that Jack Latta, who I'd been seeing for like a decade live, wanted to just support you guys because I'm a huge Jack Latta fan. Shout out Jack Latta. Really amazing gig. Yeah, hope you guys come back. I don't know if that's on the cards for
I'm sure we will
for this album.
I think it's like, I guess that I wonder why it's the default. I feel like maybe because in this modern world, you know, you go to a show or you're gonna play ahead of a band that the whole stage looks horrible, you know, it's set up terrible. Yeah. They make it look horrible and stuff, and they ask you like, you know, what do you want? We can do crazy ass strobe lighting the whole time and a lot of fog and crazy lights and all that shit. And the default for me, and I think for a lot of people, is to just go, well, we'll just start with nothing, and then we'll build. Maybe we'll do like a few spotlights, or maybe we'll do, and maybe that concept is the same for when people are playing, and they don't, you know, if they want to talk on stage, they're saying like, well, I really shouldn't say anything, and then maybe I'll do a few little introductions to songs, and they just don't want to embarrass themselves because it's very easy to embarrass yourself. But I think that, you know, you develop a gauge of when you're going too far, when you're starting to, you know, do something that you would regret or be embarrassed by, and then when you're just putting on a good show, you know what I mean, or when you're just or when you're doing the opposite. Oh, I'm not doing enough, and you know, when you're being natural, the difference between being natural and being boring. Yeah, you know, it's kind of they're hard things to figure out. So I think I don't really. I always commend people who are trying to do anything because it is easy to fall into being totally boring because it's appealing. You know, people are going to come anyway.
I hear him all the time saying, "I commend that person." I really do.
He's commending all. He's commending.
I'm a commender. I'm like
all day long.
Oh yeah, they call me the commender. What if, you know?
What if I say I'm not like the others?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm right. You're the commander.
Just one final thing. I think it also really creates. It's a great relationship with the audience as well. Like it was great to be in that crowd as well. There was a real electricity because it felt like you guys, you know, weren't taking yourselves too seriously. You were just having fun. It allows us to have a lot of fun, and yeah. For other bands, I wish they'd follow your lead on that one because it just makes the whole experience that much more enjoyable. I want to talk about A Dream Is All We Know. I want to talk about the new album. What I love about it is that, in my opinion, I think it's probably your most cohesive work. Like, I think your earlier albums had so many different ideas and influences, and you're trying out different voices from track to track. You're really just like going through your list of inspirations and just kind of like working through them. But I feel like from like songs for the general public, you've just developed more of a focus. I guess like this album, you're really exploring the 60s like fully. Like you've leaned into it all the way. Like there's no more half measure. It's like, this is our sound, this is what we are. And that's another thing I love. It's not like it's a gentle hint. It's like, no, this is us. This is what we love to do. It's 60s music. And specifically, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's that period of the 60s, like post Pet Sounds, post Sgt. Pepper, where the crayons were let out of the box, and you've got all these other bands as well who have heard these records and want to make their own masterpiece, and everyone's just blending rock and folk and psychedelia. That kind of seems like what it is you're going for. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, I think not entirely consciously, but I think that we're just in the same boat as a lot of those bands. We've heard those records, plus we've heard their records, and we've deemed them one of the high points of music, if not the high point for pop music. I think that when we were doing the Everything Harmony album, and I've maybe said this a few times, but it like the idea was Brian had these ballads, and we liked his ballads, thought they were the high points on our record, so we wanted to write a record around those ballads, because the idea was just to do something as good as we could make. So that was our best effort at that period, and I think that idea carries over to this record, where we just kind of think that's the best music. We the best music, DJ Khaled.
Shout out, yeah.
And so we were like, well, let's just try to make a record that's like, what we think is the best music. So that's kind of...
that's how we compiled it, in a sense. Actually, well, no, that's just sort of how we dressed it up. It's like we were writing we never really think about how it's going to come off in terms of a record when we're like writing. It's always like a separate ambition or something. Like, you're always just trying to write a melody that you could kind of pull off any sort of way, and you'd be able to appreciate it and like it. But when it comes to production, it's like those are definitely our favorite productions, even if they're albums that like 70s records or something that we like the songs as much, or even like the Brian Wilson like self-titled album or something. I love those songs. But my favorite productions are in that sort of sweet spot where people were just getting really good at recording acoustic and electric instruments together.
Yeah,
exactly. It's just how we dressed it up, and that's we thought that's the best. That's the best sonic palette, or that's the one that appeals to us really a lot. So
yeah, like I know you guys get compared a lot to the sound of the Beatles and the Beach Boys, but I love this record because it shows that there were so many other bands as well that had great albums in the 60s. The Easy Beats, the Zombies, the Byrds, the Association, Free Design. Thank you, by the way, for not personally, but I learned about the album Studio from Targus from you guys, and I've been listening to that a whole bunch. I love it. Just having a baby now, that wasn't really meant to be. It's like a Swedish rock band. Sad to hear it was their final album, but yeah, really good record. I also love I feel like we haven't heard a good sunshine pop song in a long while. That genre itself kind of died a pretty quick death in the 60s, but songs like Sweet Vibrations, that's total sunshine pop, talking about nature. Sweet vibration traveling through my nerves, tell me something. Hear the sound of birds. It was just this like all out unabashed joy, but also these really intricate arrangements. Like there are still strings on this album, but just employed very differently to like Everything Harmony. I think that this record will reward the listener with more plays because, you know, it's very upbeat and it's very poppy. And I think a lot of people can hear, you know, upbeat pop and just think, oh, that's cute. It's bubblegummy. It's nice. But it's these songs, like, they're really well done. They're really detailed. They have just an incredible sound. I mean, even My Golden Years, like that song in general kind of embodies the sunshine pop attitude. You know, it's like delightful, dreamy melodies offset with lyrics that, you know, depict like a sense of anxiety that the good old days are, you know, that they're gone for good. Was that kind of somewhat of an inspiration around that song?
Well, I think that because I guess like I like the idea that it embodies that attitude, because that song is like, you know, really more power pop, and the rest of the record is like kind of a sunshine pop, you know, whether you know, this genre thing, you know, it's
loose,
bleeds into each other, but it is pretty I feel like it's pretty standard power pop, that song, but because of the kind of imagery and the video and the feel of it, I think it goes well with the other songs. I think the idea of the song is kind of just more like, you know, making the most of your time on this big old,
on this little blue ball,
little blue dot,
blue and green ball.
I mean, I think that's like that message would resonate particularly with, you know, young people who essentially had 2 or 3 years of their life like put on hiatus a couple of years ago. You know, like that, when I heard that, that's what hit me. I was like, yeah, it's a power pop song. It's, you know, it's glorious and it's upbeat, but the lyrics hit you. And it's it's a great opener for the album. Really, really love it. I love They Don't Know How to Fall Into Place, the mesh of like a honky tonk piano with like the stomping and like then there's like gentle keyboard organ. It's such a great mixture of sonic textures. It's really wonderful. I'm kind of happy, honestly, to just go through the album and let you know my thoughts on these tracks, because like I said, I've been listening to it nonstop. It's not just 60s. I don't want to like shoebox this. A Dream Is All We Know, Very Wings. A dream is all I know. Very 70s.
Yeah. We got all the way over there to the mid 70s. Maybe mid early.
Yeah. I was getting early to mid, like, you know, up to Venus and Mars era Wings. We talked about Sweet Vibration, very Mamas and the Papas. Now, In the Eyes of the Girl, very Beach Boys, very In My Room. In the eyes of the world, I'm far from perfect. But Sean Lennon's collaborated with you on that track. How did that come about? How did Sean get involved with In the Eyes of the Girl?
We had just met him, 6 years ago, Brian was saying, or maybe even longer, I don't remember, but we were doing this gig out in Montauk, and he was DJing, and we were doing like an acoustic set. We were just mutual fans, and then we went to his studio this year. He kind of said at that point, you guys could come to my studio sometime, but we never took him up on it, and then the pandemic happened, and then we were talking about him singing a song on this record we've been working on for my dad for like years. We've been working on this record, so we were talking, and I don't know if he brought it up again or we did, but we made plans to go up there, and we just recorded for 3 days, and we had a really good time. And I think that song was actually one of the songs that was less finished, and Brian and I brought it back to our place and fleshed out the vocals and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember he was saying the whole time, this is really Beach Boys. You guys are really just gonna do it pretty much like the Beach Boys, huh?
What was his involvement with the song? Was he playing on it? Did he
played bass. We kind of cut the basic tracks live, like Michael on drums, me on piano, and Sean on bass.
And he suggested a couple of chords too, and we were just kind of finishing it up. and he had great suggestions. And you know, he's really, I don't know. It's always fun for us to work with somebody who's easy to like just play anything with. So he played bass, and he's multi-instrumentalist too, so we could just switch if we wanted to and stuff. Right, Brian?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Brian.
And also he has like a knowledge of chords and theory, so it was kind of like, it was very easy to, it wasn't like you have to spell out what chord you were playing or anything like that. He was like, could really take it down and do it very quickly. So, I mean, we just don't really work with that many people making the basic tracks of songs. We usually would like bring in like a horn player or something like that. So it's kind of rare to find someone rooted in like rock that is really kind of like musically literate, you know? Yeah, Michael more like kind of figures it out as he
Yeah,
goes.
I'm not really, you know, I'm not super quick with that stuff, you know. But I mean, it's all pretty simple.
And I realized I missed Church Bells, but I actually want to ask you about the harmonies in The Eyes of the Girl.
We can't go back?
I know. I've got to. I've got to though, because like the harmonies in The Eyes of the Girl, obviously very Beach Boys, but Church Bells, that's like, to me, like a love letter to the Beatles, a love letter to Liverpool. You've got a lot of Buddy Holly as well, I feel like, in the vocals.
Many wonderful people, but this is the one I love.
Is there an art to a Beach Boys harmony versus a Beatles harmony? Because in like when you're, yeah, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. I would love to hear the rest of them.
Well, like when you sing specifically Riverside, Merseyside, Jersey side, there's like an extra adenoidal, like nasally, like Beatle quality that just isn't there in The Eyes of the Girl. It's like a completely different space in your vocals. Is that like a conscious thing?
Yeah, well, it's I think it's equal parts conscious and unconscious, because you kind of just do things to whether or not they sound correct to you or not. So when we're in a live scenario and we're working with Danny, and it's Brian and I and Danny doing harmonies, we're constantly going, we have to change the shape of our mouth here and get it to really sell this part, you know, as a different part, or we gotta back off here so that tonally it's got less bass, because when you back off from the mic it's got less bass, and then it'll, so we're really conscious of those things, but it's best based on feel and how it but I, in regards to a Beatle harmony versus a Beach Boy harmony or something, I mean, that's kind of more just the choices that we're making there. Like, I think we did 5 parts, right, Brian, for the In the Eyes of the Girl, and we were doing it in a 4 freshman mode where it felt like it was, I don't know musically what things are different, but you just hear it. That sounds different.
Yeah, you add, you know, more, you know, like you add like nines and ninths or whatever, and you sometimes do things that are really close, you know, just a half step apart, so that they rub in a very like what do you call it? In a very dissonant way.
Discordant.
Yeah. But we were trying to do like a Hollies type harmony, like on one of the last songs that we were doing, and that was just sort of like making choices that we wouldn't kind of naturally make, like that went into sort of octaves and felt like a little bit less schooled, you know? Because we wanted to have this sort of like fun feel, like we just figured out the harmony in like 2 minutes, you know? And that's sometimes something that you hear in a lot of like Who recordings, where they're like stepping on each other's part. They're kind of like doing the same part when they can't quite hear the third part, or like doing octaves and they don't necessarily, you kind of listen to it, you think, do they know that they're doing octaves, or are they just like trying to do like 3-part harmony, you know? Yeah. So it's like, we're always making those decisions based on the feeling of the song. And it's usually like, it's not like, oh, we're trying to do like a Who type song, so let's do these harmonies like the Who. It's more like, what are interesting combinations, you know? Like
and just what feels
being like we could have made like Golden Years, the harmonies on that, like more simple, but we just thought it would be interesting instead of adding like strings or something to give it this kind of lush sound.
Yeah, there's also on Golden Years, there's a thing that, we were thinking of the association with the bridge of Golden Years could have kind of gone in a, it's a very Birdsy kind of bridge, the thinking back part, the second bridge. We could have gone in a more Birds direction with the harmonies, but Brian had an idea that was like, I think something's a half step away from something else, right, Brian? And it moves away, and it's a very association thing. And there's certain people whose sounds, their harmonies are just based on if they're doing a lot of vibrato or they're doing no vibrato, or if they're scooping things, or if they're not. I feel like the Hollies like just hit things like
they're like blocks just all moving together, right?
And everything hit. Well, not some. I don't.
Oh, you're
mean
talking
about
about
the
just,
way they move. I mean
inflection.
the way that they. Yeah, I mean the way that they hit the note is so. They don't slide into stuff as much. I mean, they kind of just like hit it. That's that Graham Nash sound, as opposed to the Beach Boys are always kind of sliding together, moving together, and all that stuff. And then.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That was a great answer.
It doesn't apply to everything, but it's the sound that I guess I think of when I think of them, and then. The Beatles is so natural; it doesn't usually sound as much like they're thinking about it. Their blend is so unique because they all
they retain their personalities in their harmonies, whereas the Beach Boys just all become one. Person.
Yeah. Great distinction.
Until they're unable to do that as much in the later.
Yeah.
Not, I don't mean unable to, but
no, that's where the magic is.
Yeah,
that's
I guess I just mean
develop their second sound.
Yeah. Exactly. I got to shout out the mandolin work as well in Church Bells. I don't know who was playing on that, but
Oh yeah, that was me. That's actually like a very, very compressed 12-string guitar
with like
acoustic,
all of the
but played super mandolin.
Yeah.
All of the low end like taken off of it.
Oh wow.
But Brian played all of the, except for on the song Ember Days on the album, Brian played all of the trumpets and the cellos and the violins, which were just sped up cellos.
Right.
On the album, other than the song Ember Days, which is done with the same string quartet who played on Everything Harmony album.
The Friction Quartet. Shout out to the Friction Quartet. San Francisco proceeds to shout out the Friction Quartet. That's a live meme that I'm doing. See, I'm a modern man.
No, I love it. Yeah. Shout out to the Friction Quartet. Where are we now? Oh man, If You and I Are Not Wise, that's one of my standout tracks. I've probably listened to that one more than any others. Total like acid rock, Birds sound, mid 60s sound. It's just so on point.
Is it all the same if you and I are not wise?
Really, really love that track. I don't really have a question. I just love that track. Please play that live if you tour that, because that's just I was hoping it would come out as a single because I just dig it so much. But
yeah, we had trouble knowing what to do as a single, and that song is from 2017, right, Brian?
It's like the recording was like
the recording
5 years ago.
Even the vocals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of hard for us to be objective about that track. Like some people from Captured Tracks said, "Oh, maybe that could be a single." It's got kind of the 12-string. I mean, it's hard to know. Like the last album, we didn't put Ghost Run Free as one of the singles, which it really should have been. And there might be some songs that we realized from playing live, like, oh, those are really the singles of the album.
Yeah. Ghost Run Free is my girlfriend's favorite track, and that would have been the move. But it's hard to know. Like how do you know? How do you know?
They should just let you choose them after the record. I mean, that's what they did a lot back in the day, right? You'd put the record on and then see how people responded to certain tracks. I don't know if that's true. I thought I heard that though. And then you put it out as a single after, or you could.
There's no real point to doing that. I think now, because now you can just listen to the whole record.
That's true.
Well, that's just funny.
I'm so glad
that would have been the move.
I'm so glad you're not our manager.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, me too.
I'm getting real Odyssey and Oracle vibes on How Can I Love Her More. Real Zombies Mood, love that track. That's the newest single, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, really into that song. Yeah, Ember Days.
Birds, they're circling, turning slowly into words.
I should have known right from the start. They're more your like acousticy, Laurel Canyon-y kind of songs.
Should have known right from the eye. Should have known right from the start.
They're really nice. Would you play songs like that live, or are they too instrumentally awkward with what
I think
your
Brian
live thing
might
is?
do Ember Days, when he does his cute little acoustic thing
Yeah.
at the end of the set. He might do Ember Days, right, Brian? I don't know, but I would be
Yeah,
happy to
I mean-
play any of them live. It's just a matter of if it sounds good when we play it.
Because like something like Ember Days is like it's like a big production, but as far as like arrangement, it's all very like subtle. You know, it's kind of mostly in the guitar and the harmonies. It would be fun to do that with like Danny and Michael singing. You know, I don't know. I don't push for those sorts of things.
Well-
I might because I'm more like to do songs that are really fun in a live context, and if I do my couple acoustic songs, it's like I generally just practice them myself, and not
Yeah.
force everybody else to learn them, even though they're very okay about doing that, Michael and Danny.
Yeah, I mean, you need a moment like that. You need a when winter comes around moment in the set to just so we can all hear a pin dropped. Like those are magic moments. You know, like obviously we want to have a good time, but no, I think you guys are nailing it. And speaking of up tempo, upbeat rock songs, rock on over and over, getting into real Mark Bolan territory. Was that kind of the go there? I don't know. It's real T-Rex vibes on that song.
Yeah, it was interesting because I wrote it more as like a bubblegum kind of rock thing, like a I can't think of maybe a reference for that, but doesn't matter anyway. I had thought of it as more of a kind of like
Do it again, kind of.
Well, like
thing.
Do It Again.
Oh, yeah.
Like Do It Again, maybe even a little bit less ballsy than Do It Again. And then when we played it live, it had a heavier sound. So then when we made the recording, I think it was kind of informed by the live thing. And Brian actually played bass and drums on it, and we replaced the bass and drums. We had a little trouble recording that, and I like that song a lot. I think that it could kind of be played anyway, and I would be pretty into it. So it's interesting because it definitely sounds pretty glam, and I was definitely thinking about that kind of sound when we were recording it, but it was a little random.
There was sort of a process with that song where we did an initial version of it, and it sounded pretty weak, kind of. So then we kind of went back and we added these drums over top the rest of the recording. We tried to get it as tight as we could, and added more heavy guitars, so it kind of took on that just kind of spontaneously to sort of match with the live version.
Yeah,
that we did.
it's weird. The only reason it strikes me as weird is because I don't think I was particularly going through. I mean, I have liked a lot of that stuff a lot. It's just I don't think I was particularly going through any kind of glam thing. It just kind of I don't know what possessed us to do it in that style, but it I like it. I think maybe Roy Wood will have a song that's sort of in that vein or something on a record, and it's kind of just a product of maybe like a 50s type song through a 70s lens. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's just really a process of recording things very hot, I mean, that was really what we were
it's
doing.
compressed and kind of the gear that we have and stuff is all later 70s, mid 70s. So.
And Peppermint Roses, that really got me because the first thing I thought of was I'll Be Back by the Beatles.
I know I'm the only one. I know you know if you break my heart, I'll go.
Like very similar, but then it turns into Strawberry Alarm Clock territory. I mean, was that the reference? Incense and Peppermints, Peppermint Roses?
Incense and peppermints, the color of time. My peppermint roses back.
Was that?
I mean, it wasn't
coincidence?
incense and peppermints. It was, but that generally speaking, you know, bands like that. I mean, like the Mirage and a lot of bands that you know people wouldn't really be thinking about, but
Sure.
kind of like the corny side of psychedelia and stuff that nobody embraces. That's really the side that I more like.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, and the verse is totally got that. I'll be back. What are the other songs, Brian? Bus Stop and all that. The A minor songs.
In terms of playing live, because you've been talking a lot about how these songs translate to a live setting. Obviously, it would be expensive, and I know that you've said in the past that if you wanted to do a live album, it would be a live album recorded to tape, you know, keeping in line with how you guys record your studio albums. But would you ever do a live, probably not a tour, but like a show that you could record that has more of a string quartet, that has more players? Because I feel like it's so good seeing you guys in that, you know, 2 guitars, bass, drums, occasional keyboard, 4 dudes just rocking out. Like that's a perfect way to see the Lemon Twigs. But I would also love to see, you know, Lemon Twigs at the Philharmonic, not the Philharmonic, but you know what I mean? Just something with a bit of a grander, like really pull out that sound of those ballads from Everything Harmony. Like, is that on the cards, do you think, one day?
It would be fabulous.
I would definitely like to do that. We're always just kind of waiting for a time when we don't have to cut any corners in doing something like that. You know, like we only want to do it if we can have enough time to rehearse and really pull it off. I mean, the thing that would be easier for us to do would be something more stripped down with strings and horns or something like that. Like an
I'm talking about
acoustic. without a group necessarily. Like that I could see us really like pulling off with, you know, just like the kind of places that we play.
In sort of
I do think it would be great with the band too.
Yeah, I think
it would be great with the band too. It seems like other people get those opportunities. Like people, we don't really get those calls for some reason, but we should.
You should.
About like, you know, like, about like, you know, our quartet would love to play one of your things, or our you know, choir or something like that. Yeah, I mean, no, but you know, people who there's lots of people who do that kind of thing. You know, who they just happen to have some event going, and then but we haven't had that opportunity yet, and it seems a little bit difficult to organize ourselves. You know what I mean?
When we're like arranging strings and stuff, it's like I'll write it down, but I'm not so literate with that kind of thing where I would feel confident just presenting my my music to like a huge group or something.
Yeah,
I always usually work with like 4 string players, and they're usually doing some corrections as far as like the notation to make it easier to read. So we would really need some support to do that. And
I see what you're saying.
Necessarily, because you're in doing the videos and stuff ourselves, and not the first 2 videos; those were done by Ambar Navarro and Max Flick, but. The last 2 videos we did ourselves, and obviously the recording and stuff, and it's kind of like we try to just kind of do things that we can really like give people a good show. I think we explained it. I think we buried it.
So yeah, like bringing a song like "Born to Be Lonely" to you know, a larger orchestra, that'd be intimidating for you to be like, all right.
Oh, I mean, it would be a thrill. It would just be something that would be for us to pursue that. It would have to be.
We'd have to hire an arranger to make sure that Brian's arrangements were correct to then give to the players, because we've had this situation before where somebody looks at the music that Brian wrote and goes. Because, you know, the sharps and the flat, you know, it's not to their instrument and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're like looking really weird. And then they're all playing, and it's difficult to read because it's not written out exactly the way that it's supposed to be or something technically. I remember they started playing it, and after a while of doing the session, they were like really impressed by the arrangements once they were hearing them the right way. But
Oh, cool.
there was this layer of skepticism because of it was kind of presented in a fucked up way, and then also probably he looks like a dirty shaggy guy with
I look like a damn dirty hippie.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything, but totally right.
I know he didn't.
I come in all disheveled.
He didn't get a haircut for the show.
I come in all disheveled and awkward. I'm apologizing to them as they walk in the door, handing them the music.
That's the exact same story as A Day in the Life. Paul's got this whole freaking orchestra, and he's just like, play your lowest note to your highest note. Just interpret that as you will. You can get by on pure confidence.
Yeah, well,
True,
he's
very
really
true.
confident, is what I was going to say. He's like ridiculously confident.
Yeah, that's what you're known for, Brian.
He wrote a
No, I meant Paul is.
Right.
Compared to Brian.
Liverpool Oratorio. Is that what it is?
Oratorium.
Or
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
He wrote a whole oratorio. No, I don't think that's what it's called.
Oratorio. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Sounds like a pasta.
It's not the best album. I gotta say, I don't really go.
It was
in
a
for
flop.
A lot of, yeah. He's written like 5 classical albums and they've all been fine.
Finally answering the question: Is he Mozart? He is no Mozart.
He is of his generation. Yeah.
Of course, I'm just kidding. If people are gonna, I'm known. I hate the Beatles, right? That's what I'm
Famously.
known for.
Famously, it must be so frustrating that your music sounds so similar. All right, so look. Speaking of the Beatles, you've been raised on them. You were shown like Anthology and Hard Day's Night when like you were barely in elementary school, right? Like So growing up because you guys are like 7-9 years younger than me even, but I remember going to school like with my iPod listening to the Beatles when everyone else was listening to like Eminem, and they'd be like, what is that? Or I'd be listening to like the soundtrack to the film Stand By Me because it's just got these great 50s rock songs on it. That's what I loved growing up, but I found that there was a lot of friction with other kids because that's not what everyone else was listening to. Did you find was that a hard thing to realize that when you went to school not everyone else was into the Beatles and the Beach Boys and all the same stuff that you're into? Was that difficult?
It was kind of weird. I mean, but I don't remember people being particularly interested in music in general in like a sort of big way. When I was like growing up, but I had a few teachers that I think because we had like a musical theater background at that point, like by the time we were like 8 or 9, or no, maybe 9 or 10, we were already doing some like Broadway shows. And I remember that kind of the work. People like even kids like knew that Broadway was like this thing, So the kids would usually ask me like, "Oh, is it true that you're on Broadway?" or ask questions like that if I didn't know them, and then I'd say, "Yeah," and then they would just walk away, and that was the extent of my like interaction with kids.
Right.
We were always kind of like there was some.
You're saying there wasn't
difference.
friction, but there was kind of like
There wasn't friction, but there was definitely like this feeling of like being a little bit different than some of the other kids, or like a little bit like we just get this kind of or I would just get this attention that was kind of embarrassing, that was like not really like positive or negative. It was just neutral, if that makes any sense.
I know that.
But I did have a
Brian,
couple of teachers that like had me bring a guitar to school and like play like Beatles songs because they knew that I liked the Beatles and that was music that they liked and things like that.
Oh, cool.
That was always kind of embarrassing, but like it was like ultimately positive, because they were, being nice about it.
Yeah.
But didn't you have the realization that everybody? I'm trying to set you up for the idea that when you were my father always says that when Brian was a little kid and he was going around in the McDonald's play place asking everybody, let's play the Yellow Submarine game. And thinking that was a game that the children might play.
That was just part of the monoculture. We all knew the Yellow Submarine game.
Well, also it was confusing because when you saw the documentaries, you knew what a big deal it was. You know, that's also a big part of the documentaries. Is everybody knew those, and so the idea that these people were like still alive, you know, half of them were still alive. Yeah. It was unfathomable to me that everybody wouldn't be at least like aware of it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird, like the whole thing in general of like not being influenced by something that happened such a short time ago, historically speaking, is very strange. But it goes to show like the nature of pop music is different than the nature of other types of music, you know? It's like it really is supposed to be this, in a lot of people's eyes, this thing that lasts, you know, for a few years and then you're supposed to forget about it.
Yeah, maybe even shorter.
Well, speaking of I guess influences, because you did grow up, you know, you're Gen Z or Gen Z as we would say here in Australia. What were the modern influences on you guys, or just music that you liked, that came from the time that you grew up in? Nothing 60s or 70s. What was the modern stuff that you liked, if any?
Well, we really got very heavily into like the Flaming Lips and MGMT, especially their like especially Congratulations.
Oh my God, yeah,
those are such well written songs, you know.
Yes.
And the chords are really good, and Foxygen like just opened up our whole world, you know. They let us, you know, gave us permission to kind of make recordings that sort of sounded like our favorite recordings from a, you know, recording standpoint, and know that it could be effective, and you know, it was very important, you know. So those bands of Montreal, especially the like the Gay Parade and Coquelicot, Sleep at the Poppies, that really influenced my songwriting because the interesting song structures and the crazy chord progressions and the recording style of that.
Yeah, that's how Congratulations was too, because we were well aware of the idea that there was like retro music and stuff, and when we were kids, we never veered in that. Well, we veered in the direction of we were in cover bands and we only did 60s songs. But when we were getting older, we just followed, you know, the songs, you know what I mean? And to us, Congratulations was full of great songs and with cool chords and stuff, and the same with the Of Montreal stuff, and that stuff happens to, and Foxygen we thought was great, and that stuff happens to lean in the direction of kind of a retro thing, as opposed to maybe like the Flaming Lips, who we loved, and they had great, you know, songs, and Ariel Pink too, who had a lot of great songs, and it's like, it's not retro.
Yeah.
But what influenced us to finally go in that, I guess, direction was just the idea of we also love the sound of those records too.
Yeah.
And
like the modern sounds like that are on, you know, Flaming Lips and MGMT records, it's like that really works for them, and it obviously caters to their taste, you know. But when we're recording, it's like it just, I don't know, maybe we tried a little bit on our like third record, or I tried in the mixing to incorporate some modern stuff that I was listening to in the cue of like some of the bass and stuff. But I do think it kind of muddied parts of that record up, you know, like it made it a little bit more difficult to hear some of what was going on. So there's an art to that style of mixing, but it's one that it just is kind of a little bit untrue for us to pursue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's nowadays the modern people that we like are just the people that we're friends with and that those were people when we were growing up, who
Yeah.
who influenced us. But now that we do have people that we like, they're just people we're friends with, and maybe we're not actively listening as much, because when you do that, you kind of then become inspired by it, and you want to make something like that yourself. And but definitely enjoy the music when we hear it, and go to their shows and stuff, and enjoy the shows. There's a vitality to younger musicians. And all the shows that we mostly see, we really see like the Herman's Hermits a lot, which there's a great vitality there too, because Peter Noon is an extraordinary entertainer. But it's fun to see a band that's really excited and the song's fresh and they just kind of wrote it and stuff.
Yeah. I'm so glad you shouted out Congratulations by MGMT. That is one of my all-time favorite records. Like songs like Flash Delirium, I think just embody so much of that kind of vintage sound. But yeah, it's got that modern MGMT flair and I think a lot of that kind of classic MGMT sound can be heard in their new album as well, Loss of Life. I don't know if you've given it a listen, but I really like it.
I haven't listened to the whole thing, but yeah, I thought it sounded really good. And yeah, we played with James and Will, who play on Congratulations a whole lot, and that was more of like a band record where they recorded it together. And
yeah, because it was just the two of them, and then they were a band.
Them on It's Working, like at Soundcheck, and that was super fun because like we hadn't really thought about that song in a while, and it was super fun to play it with James and Will. Yeah, they're really great musicians.
Well, speaking of collaborators, you guys collaborated with one of my favorite artists, Weyes Blood. I made a video about her album Titanic Rising. What was working with Natalie like, or Weyes Blood as she's more famously known?
It was fun. It was like during a period when we had worked with Rado like a lot on like a bunch of records in short succession. So Rado like produced that record.
Yeah.
He brought us in. And we had met Natalie at a festival, and I was like a big fan of Front Row Seat to Earth, and I think it was a really good collaboration because I think we were there at the studio for like 2 weeks, and we got to kind of build the tracks. Like we recorded a lot of stuff live, switching around instruments. I got to do like a lot of overdubs on some of the songs, and I kind of like wanted to write like a string arrangement for this particular song that I just really loved, the first track on that record. And so that was cool because like I had never really done that on somebody else's record, and it was really fun. I mean, it's
we did it.
Cool record to be a part of,
We did it over at Rado's studio at the time, which was a place called Sonora, which was a really cool studio. And I mean, anytime working with Rado has been like, it's so fun because he's just one of our really close friends. So when we work together, we work closely together, and it was that was a really fun record to make. It was real open, like you could be creative, and it was a fun thing, and it was a creative studio too, because there was tons of gear, and the songs were obviously great. So then if you have great songs to build off of it, is it's just a matter of bringing that out of them, making sure that they read as great songs. So
Actually, I had one more question about your upbringing, if I could just jump back to that.
Sure.
Ludwig Göransson, the composer of Oppenheimer, when he was accepting his Oscar, he said,
and to my parents up there, thank you for giving me guitars and drum machines instead of video games. Thank you.
Brian and Michael, was that the same for you? Were you allowed video games? Were you raised on video games? That's just like something I really want to know.
I
we
played
were
some
allowed
video
games. For sure. Brian was much better than I. I was so bad at video games and sports that it never made any sense for me to try to be good at those, because I was just naturally not gifted at that.
I remember your dexterity on Guitar Hero was so poor that you used to play it with a controller.
Just defeating the purpose of Guitar Hero.
That's right.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed that game. Dude, I loved COD.
Brian's actually a natural video game player. I mean, he's just a natural guy, so he's good.
It's just there's always this
music
point
and stuff
in
like that too.
playing video games where you just feel like completely dead inside, you know.
Sure.
And that was
Yes,
always
it's very
like,
depressing.
it would always be like,
You know, an hour and a half into it or something, and then I would have to kind of stop and do something else. But also, what kept me from getting really obsessed was I was so frightened as a kid. Like I could barely go to the bathroom, like, you know, without the door open, because I was so scared of ghouls and monsters and things like that. Particularly the Saw puppet face. I really disliked the look of that, and it frightened me. And so when I would play video games, like war games, it was scary for me to play alone. So.
I didn't like it either.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because you're raised in a generation where like video games seem to be the thing that young people are doing. It's almost like it overtook music in a way. Like it's good that you guys are creating music that has a lot of chord changes and melodies, because I think that's music that can touch people who are young, especially. There's so much music at the moment that is very kind of vibey and very sort of like a wash of sound. And I think the thing that will make kids come back to like being fans of music are those songs that like get you up, and where you can listen to every little instrument, and that's totally achievable in your music. So I'm forever just trying to be your cheerleader, you guys. That's why I made that video about you, because I just want more people to know about your stuff.
I think it is sort of like essential now, though, too. Like you mentioned, like chord changes and stuff like that. When you set out to like write a song now, there are, you know, so many combinations of chords that have been done. I think if there is a modern identity to the kind of music that we make, it's the necessity to be surprising as far as like the melody and the chord changes.
Yeah.
I don't know that necessity was necessarily there when the whole form and all the aesthetics and the groundwork of that sound was being laid out, you know.
Yeah.
It depends on the song, though, obviously, because there are some simple songs on the record too, but I don't know. It's I don't know. So I'm glad that it hasn't been like a barrier for people to get into the new material.
As long as you you know, dress it up the right way, then there's no reason. I mean, really, I know you said that. I don't know if there was the necessity to make things that I guess kind of weird and stuff, because there just weren't as many melodies and stuff that were taken, but there wasn't that necessity. But, you know, Brian Wilson still made things more, maybe.
Oh man. I mean, that tracks with Michael. Hopefully we'll get him back, because my next question was actually getting full circle back to what we were talking about at the beginning, which was Now and Then. I wanted both of your thoughts on Now and Then.
Question again. I mean,
as we were talking about before,
yes,
Michael and I were listening to it with enthusiasm. When we were working with Sean, he had kind of told us that it was coming, which we were really we were like, oh, this is so cool to get.
Yeah.
You know, Beatles information ahead of when it's announced or whatever. But I think, well, no, I don't know. We were listening to it and really with anticipation and stuff, and we were really enjoying it, especially like, you know, the clarity of John's voice and the bass playing and you know, the new drums and stuff like that. But then we kept waiting for this bridge that we had heard in the demo, and I know like that's something that people have been talking about. You know, that's one of the reactions that people have had. But yeah, we kept waiting, and then it just kept not coming. So then when it got to the end, that was sort of our disappointment with it. Was not really the execution, but because there's this middle section of the song that is a pretty simple chord progression, you know.
It's the I don't want to lose you kind of bit.
The I don't want to lose you, yeah. And I don't know. There's so many demos on that he did in that period where he kind of recycled melodies.
Yeah.
And I don't. That's not a recycled melody, is it?
No. It's really it's quite minor chords, very kind of like somber. That bridge, and his following records were a lot more, I guess, wholesome, and like Double Fantasy is quite a happy sounding album. So no, I don't think he would have recycled that on anything else. Hey, welcome back, Michael.
Okay, we're talking about now and
we're talking about now and then. We're talking about now and then. What are your thoughts?
I loved
I said.
the demo. I loved the demo. I always liked the demo, and I don't know why they got rid of the bridge, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, same thing. What about Paul doing a slide guitar solo in tribute to George? How do you feel like that was
cool.
Yeah.
I think it's totally fine. I just think it was not. I just honestly don't think it's as good as he could have done.
Yeah. That was my thing.
But I mean, I hate to even say that, because it's like, if he did it, then he did it as well as he thinks that he could have done it. Just for some reason, it feels like maybe he just... honestly, I think if he would have just put on a little All Things Must Pass just right before he did it, just to kind of get in the mood a little bit. He's so incredibly talented, he would have been able to just kind of start thinking in that mode. But I feel like he just kind of...
Yeah, it's a tough one.
We can't be so frank in public. I know we're not saying anything that controversial that I haven't said before, but we love the Beatles. We love everything that they do.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I think I did think that also, didn't Tony Visconti write on Facebook something about the arrangement being a little
simple,
underwhelming?
He said they should have. They should have asked me. Which you can't. You would probably have done a great job.
Yeah, you can't I mean, I think that with I guess that they've had so much success in being natural, and that maybe it feels too risky to do something, and if you made a string arrangement that you really thought about, or you made a slide solo that you really thought, I don't mean that he thought about when they made it. I mean that when you're listening, you really notice it. Okay. Yeah. Same with the slide guitar. Somebody's gonna say you're taken away from the song. You're diminishing the song by overcomplicating it, and obviously Lennon was not into things being super complicated, overly complicated. So there's the possibility that maybe it feels like it wouldn't be serving his original vision by making things kind of really ornate. But but it felt like it was that really kind of maybe a little too far in that direction.
Okay. No. I've been meaning to ask you guys, because I think when you were playing in Melbourne, it was like the announcement, like that was the night that you were saying on stage, like, hey, we're getting new Beatles tonight, but it was just the announcement that it was coming in a week's time. And since that moment, I've been like, oh man, I gotta ask them. I gotta know what they think of it.
And what did you think about it?
Look, I found it so surreal listening to it for the first time. Like, just like putting on headphones and just being like, all right, new Beatles song, press play. Like it didn't, the first time I listened to it, it just kind of like washed over me. Like I was almost like numb to it, because there's just so much expectation, but also zero, because you have no idea what it should sound like. Like I'd heard the demo, like, many others had, but and I didn't want to be like too judgmental or anything like I had so many thoughts running through my head, but it was I made a video on this where like 3 days later I'm listening to it, I'm washing the dishes, and I just start like breaking down, like not even because of like the chord changes necessarily or the song itself or the lyrics, but it's just the Lennon and McCartney connection through time thing really got me. And that, I think, is the beauty of that song. Like, regardless of, what you think of the production or how compressed it sounds or not compressed, it's just like there's something very special about the need for McCartney to complete that kind of, you know, trilogy of Freeze a Bird, Real Love, and Now and Then, and like, you know, especially in these like later years. You know, now we've got that music video as well, which will always will always be just
treasure.
Yeah.
Well, wait, what did you think of it then sonically?
Well,
like, did you talk about it? And I know you did a video on it.
Yeah. I mean, like,
and
sonically, it was a lot. Like, there's a lot going on at once. Like, unlike, I thought that was the most un-Beatles thing about it, is how much sound there was taking up the whole space at all times, which I don't feel the Beatles necessarily leaned into all that much. You know, like, I understand that Paul wanted to put strings in because, you know, incorporating strings into rock music was kind of their bag. They kind of, you know, mastered that. But I think it just sounded a lot more like the McCartney 3 album, you know, like a song like Women and Wives. I thought it had a very similar kind of feel to that, which is not surprising. You know, like, it's, when you get to this point in time, they're not creating a Beatles sound. Paul McCartney's just creating the sound that he knows, which is his solo sound of the last 40 years. So, you know, I think they did an amazing job. I find it to be an emotional listen. And any other nitpicks I have, it's like, it's the Beatles. You know, it's like, how mad can you really get, you know?
It's the bloody Beatles.
In that case, I thought that you were more critical of it, so please axe all the stuff that I said about it that was negative, because I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, no, sure, absolutely.
How is he gonna edit? How is he gonna edit around that? You said nothing positive about it.
Whatever, I don't care. Whatever. Look, here's the.
I'll just put Tony Visconti's review of it like over your face.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You know what? I had the same thing with the first time I heard it, and so did Brian, where we were like super anticipating it and psyched, and it was crazy, and it was just funny because we listened to it and we were like, okay,
yeah.
And then and then it was over, and then the bridge just never came.
Yeah.
We kept going, or like waiting for whatever that, I can't even remember the bridge is. Now I'm thinking of the bridge for
I don't wanna lose.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Look, I mean, that's really the thing, you know. I mean, I wish I would have never heard that demo.
That's exactly what I thought too, was that I wish I never heard the demo.
My take as well is that there should have been 2 versions. Like, the version that we got for, you know, the full Beatles, you know, at their apex, their pepper sound, which I think is what Paul was trying to do. But I think they also should have done a totally stripped down version with maybe even just like, you know, Lennon and McCartney, you know, and Paul just adding only what he needs to the demo, you know, because they threw everything onto that track. It didn't need to be that busy at all times. I would have loved to have heard a more stripped down version, maybe just Paul adding the piano parts where there needed to be piano parts, maybe a bit of bass and harmony. I think that would have been just as good, if not better.
Well, look, I mean, that's the thing about this technology, is that people are kind of doing that in every...
Are people doing that?
Yeah, I mean, they got every version of that song that you could ever want, I think, on YouTube.
Is that right?
Somewhere.
Well, you know...
I mean, it's probably not... It's not done as well, but, I mean, I don't know. I mean, on some level, it's like, we have our own expectations, but you do ultimately just accept what the artist did, because, you know, they're the artist and you appreciate it, you know?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily agree with it.
Are you guys excited for Let It Be coming out next month, I think it is?
Yeah, what is this Let It Be?
So, well, it's
coming out
like
next month.
Is it based on Get Back, that miniseries?
Yeah. It's like a 1 hour version of Get Back. It does seem weird in like a post Get Back world where we've seen, you know, so much of that journey, and then Let It Be is like this, you know, hodgepodge of their time, you know, making what they thought was an album called Get Back. I mean, to me, it's like great that we're getting it, great that it's going to look and sound, you know, a bit more fresh and sparkly like Get Back did, but I wouldn't say it's pointless, but there's just like I'm glad we're getting Besame Mucho in like, you know, 4K, and like the couple of the other songs that they do that's just on Let It Be and not Get Back. But
I watched like, you know, a VHS rip of Let It Be like shortly after Get Back. I watched Get Back. And it was interesting how seeing all of that footage kind of colored your perception of the movie, you know? It didn't really seem like this negative like cut necessarily, because they do have like a lot of the kind of fun jamming in the movie as well. It's just interesting. I guess, you know, the perception of it must have been really informed by the fact that they had just broken up, you know? Otherwise it would just seem like pretty standard creative tension that you have in a group, you know? I don't even think, is it even like clear that George, they didn't even reveal that George had left?
No, they just go from Twickenham to Apple, and like they don't explain like the jump there at all. I think you're right. I think it was colored by the fact that they had broken up, so it almost didn't matter what was going to be in the film. It's like the Beatles are over, so the film is therefore depressing. But you watch it now, and apart from the fact that it looks terrible because like only like Laserdisc and VHS rips exist of it because it hasn't been released in like 40 years or whatever, it's not that bad. It's like it's not any more depressing than Get Back. In fact, Get Back goes to more low points because George literally quits, and you know, you've got Paul, you know, worried that John has also quit. Like Get Back gets to a more depressing point than Let It Be ever does, which is why I think it's a more rewarding experience. But yeah, I guess we'll see. Are you how do you feel about the way they I guess kind of like smoothed the film grain and that kind of thing?
Well, when I first saw it, I thought it was really weird. Yeah, but then I got totally used to it, and I started to enjoy the idea that it was like putting them in a modern context, but making it look like it was, you know, could have been the other day. You know what I mean? And it does help with seeing them in a more human way. I think I don't know that it was really necessary to like smooth the film grain that or like do as much as they did. I mean, because they kind of did a lot. And when I saw it at first, I was like, this looks like a video game. But then, I think it's just a matter of getting used to it, really. And I like I said, like, I think it does help with that relationship. I don't know if it's as beautiful as it probably could have been really, like, a really pretty restoration where the film grain is there, but it's very clear and it's, you know, more artsy or something. But I don't know that you would want to watch that for that many hours. As much as you would want to watch something that's so crystal clear. You know what I'm saying?
I think, I think they should have left a bit of the film grain in. I agree. It does look like it's at some points it's like almost like a painting, or like a video game. But I mean, the payoff is that you get 9 hours of Beatles footage, which is really like the best takeaway.
I'm not complaining even a little bit. That's more my initial impression, and then it totally faded away.
Absolutely,
I didn't care at all.
You
know, I was struck by this in the middle of the night a couple nights ago. New Beach Boys documentary on Disney Plus. Are they gonna give the Beach Boys the Beatles treatment? I mean, I know that they've been filmed far less than the Beatles, but it would be kind of cool if they just moved on to the Beach Boys immediately after. And just had some sort... I mean, you know what they could do that with? Keeping the Summer Alive. They could do... Because they made a documentary about that album. So the 9-hour Keeping the Summer Alive movie is coming. Don't worry. It's coming.
That would be so fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I just don't. I just want to know how they got that sound on Sunshine. Bum 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 be doo bum bum. Or what's
Living in Heartache.
Yeah.
That's a good album though.
I mean, yeah, the nadir of
No one
the
cares
Beach Boys
about that.
discography, to be honest. I mean,
Living in heartache.
They could probably do MIU album, but I guess
They have
when
footage
made,
from that.
Yeah, they made like a TV special about that album. But probably when they were filming for TV, they shot probably way less.
Yeah,
you know?
they wouldn't have shot that much, and also, you know,
Honestly, probably this one, I don't know if it's a 90-minute documentary. That's probably all we're getting from.
yeah,
From
I'm
the
worried that it's also
collaborate.
not going to go past 1968 as well. Like,
Yeah, I think
the
the
Beach
Beach
Boys
Boys,
thing?
Beach Boys, they do more of like the Talking Heads type style.
I just feel like we've seen that. You know, we
Yeah.
had the Brian Wilson, the Long Promised Road one a couple years ago, and I want something that really tackles the 70s. The Beach Boys in the 70s is so fascinating. That's why I made a video on the Beach Boys Love You, because you can't find anything on that album, and it's like Brian Wilson's favorite Beach Boys album. It's like, why isn't there a documentary on this record, like the record that he's said time and time again is his favorite.
I saw
That's what I want
a
to see.
interview of
I think Earl Mankey talking about that record.
The engineer.
Wasn't he? I mean, yeah, he was the engineer. Yeah, right. So, and that was pretty illuminating to the vibe in the studio. I think he talks about Brian showing the songs to Al and Mike, and them looking at each other. What are we gonna do, kind of thing. And that's interesting. And then also, like, there's stuff about the Andy Paley sessions that kind of like unverified stuff about like Carl that I read about Carl not being very into the material. That to me is like such a tragic thing about Brian Wilson is like there are these creative high points in his that have all been extensively bootlegged. And like Adult Child, and because it's like quirky, I guess it was deemed to not suit the Beach Boys at various points in their career. But it's great music.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap up in a couple of minutes, guys, but I wanted to reiterate, I know we talked about you coming back to Australia, but if you are here during December or March, that's when a music festival that Weyes Blood played at a few years ago, Meredith and Golden Plains. Meredith's in December, Golden Plains is in March. It's a fantastic festival that it's not commercial. That there's no advertising anywhere. I think you guys would be met with a hero's welcome if you played. So I don't know if timelines sync up. Keep it in mind because I think it'd be a great festival circuit for you. I know there's like in Australia, I don't know if it's happening in the States, but we're just like losing music festivals left, right, and center. Like we're a lot of it, like major ones are just being cancelled because of, I don't know, money. I think it's expensive to come here, as you probably know as well. I just had to give a little shout out to that. To those festivals because I think they'd really embrace your style as well. There's a lot of like quirky bands, quirky musicians of all different types, and I just hope to see you back on our shores at some point. I know you're doing the UK around like August, September or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
we're hoping we get over there as soon as possible. I mean, we're playing Spain, like our own shows in Spain for like the first time. It's taken like forever to get over there. And so there's no reason to assume that it would be like as long as, it was the last time we came to Australia, like 7 years or whatever.
I mean, we had a lot of fun last time.
I would think probably next year would be the latest that we would come back,
Yeah, perfect. All right.
But yeah, thanks for the recommendation on the festival. I'll definitely look into that. What did you say it was?
Well, it's the same venue, It's the same place. It's like a supernatural amphitheater. That's what they call it. It's this natural amphitheater in the state of Victoria, in just outside of Melbourne. And it's Meredith is in December, Meredith Music Festival. And in March, it's called Golden Plains. Weyes Blood played at Golden Plains 2020, like right before the pandemic, March 2020. It's just a festival that really embraces music. It's for music lovers, really. I think it's just one stage as well, so you don't have to worry about like splitting time. Who am I competing with?
That's sick.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Well, look, thank you so much for your time today, guys. This was very generous of you guys to spend this much time talking with me. Where can we find you online? Where can listeners and watchers find you?
Oh, you can find us on Instagram, the Lemon Twigs. You can find us on thelemontwigs.com. That has all of our stuff on it. And yeah.
Yeah, and of course you've got an album coming out on May 3rd, A Dream Is All We Know. Buy the album, people. Buy it. Buy a physical version as well. I imagine that's like, I mean, I'm sure you'd just be happy for people to listen to this album no matter what. But I imagine, given that it is an analog record, you'd want people to listen to it in an analog fashion.
Yeah, I mean, this one sounds really good, you know, because it was like the last record we kind of we did kind of like the thing that like Todd Rundgren did on like Wizard of True Star, and we had 13 songs. It was like a pretty long record.
Yeah.
So that album had to be kind of mastered to vinyl a little bit on the quieter side, but because this record was like,
well, it had a long side, and it had a long side.
We had a lot of help from like Paul Millar, who does helps us with the mastering, and Scott Hull at Masterdisc, and they got it like on there. Like, it sounds really good.
All right. Well, good luck with the album release. I'll be spruiking it when it comes out. You know I will. This will probably be released day of, I imagine, day before, day of.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just so it lines up nicely with the release date. Thank you so much, and hopefully talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Well, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll see you when we're in Melbourne.
Absolutely.
That's where you said you are, right?
Melbourne. Yeah, Melbourne. Yeah.
Did we? Because
Silent
we
R.
went out and stuff at the show, at the Corner Hotel. We talked there, right?
No, I just went as a fan. I was this all kind of happened pretty fast. I made that video on you guys like January, and that was your show was in October, so I was just a mere civilian back then. But hey, next time you're around, let me know.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, perfect. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Thanks.
Cheers. See you guys.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview between myself and Brian and Michael D'Addario of the Lemon Twigs. That was a lot of fun for me. Hopefully it was for you guys as well. If you want to see more of my videos, I've got a whole bunch of stuff, including a video on the Lemon Twigs. But otherwise, I release a bonus video every month on my Patreon, which is also a great place if you feel like supporting me. So if you like my stuff, please jump down there and you'll get a bonus video every month. Plus, I've got Discord access on there. It's 3 a.m, so I'm probably going to go to bed. Goodbye.